your family first get to Plano? And you're going to give advantage here to Rutledge. Tell us about when your family first got here, why they came here.
My family came to Plano in 1856 and settled about 100 yards from where I live today. You know, I noticed a note come through last night, and I don't know how, you want to go with many questions? You want me to answer part of a question, or where you want me to start?
To answer those two questions, I'm going to ask you questions for the next 30 minutes.
They may not get the microphone. But it's obvious these folks didn't know what the program was today, or they wouldn't be here.
Well, they thought it was going to be scandalous. See, that's
Oh, okay. Family came to Plano in 1856 and settled, like I say, about 100 yards from where the party garden is today. And I'm not going to go through the whole detail right now, but why they came here is more fertile grounds. They came from Kentucky, and my great-great-grandfather and my great-great-grandfather came. He died a couple of years after he got here, and my great-grandfather was 16 at the time. And Randy, I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to stop there, Olin. If you want to come back and take that further, I'll do so. But if I stay with it, you won't have time to ask questions, because a lot of history has happened since 1856.
Yeah. Jamie, how about you? When did your family first get here?
Well, the first thing I wanted to say was that I'm going to give you $5 after the program so you can buy some socks. But your ankles are very attractive.
Okay, I won't bring up the sheep then.
Well, we did have sheep, and I'll talk about that. But my family got here in January of 1878, so a few years after Rutledge's family did, and that was Fred and L.E.R. Louise Ernestine Rammer Schimmelfennig. They had 8 children here, and the youngest of those kids was my grandmother, Irene Martha Schimmelfennig, and she was born in 1894. Lived here her entire life, married my grandfather A.R. Schell, Alex Schell, in 1921, and in 22 had my father, their only child, little Alec. And of course I've lived here virtually my entire life since then.
Very good. Randy, how about you? Moving up a few years.
Yeah, my dad moved here in the 1930s, and I heard him telling the story to a fellow one time who was asking when my dad moved to Plano, and he said, and he told him, and he started a GMC truck and Alice Chalmers tractor dealership, plus he had land that he was farming, and he owns some farms. And when he moved to Plano, he said Plano was the cliquiest town that he had ever seen. If you were a Haggard, a Harrington, a Schimmelfennig, or he named a couple of other families, he said people didn't want to do business with you. And he said, and I like to start. And then Clifton Haggard bought a pickup from him, and it broke the ice, and the people started doing business with him then.
That's good. Why'd your dad move here?
Well, that's another thing that he's talking about. And he said, me being an outsider moving in, people didn't want to do business. When the fellow asked, well, where did you move in from? And he said, Allen.
Long distance.
All right, very good. Pass the mic back to Rutledge. All right, the next thing is, there's some just miscellaneous pictures on your tables. One of them is one of the original downtown photos, and there's another 1980. I guess the question to you, Rutledge, is what's your first going to town, downtown, Plano memory? When and where were you going, and what do you remember when you first went to downtown Plano?
Well, back when I was growing up, Plano was still a rural community. This was a farming community. And it's interesting that even though there were the cotton gins and the implement dealerships and the grain elevators in Plano, that we went to school in Plano, we went to church in Plano, but all of the farming activities took place in Frisco, and not a lot of difference in distance between Plano, downtown Plano and downtown Frisco, but for some reason it was just a lot more, I guess, convenient for us to go to Frisco with the farming products, the grain, and well, the grain went to Carrollton. If you know where the concrete silos are in Carrollton, it's got I think the rock climbing in it today. That was Blanton's elevator, and we hauled grain from the farm where we are here all the way to Carrollton when I was growing up. And I've lost the question that you asked me, and I know I've wandered from that, but
Just your first memory going
memories of downtown. Susan and I sat and talked this morning a little bit, and we were talking about the Schell family and Randy's family, and of course Susan, not being a Planoite, had no idea the background from that, and she tells me every day when I sit and drink coffee with her that Rutledge, you need to write a book, because there's so much that you have up here that's probably in the basement of the Haggard Library, but somebody has to go and research it. And the downtown Plano was very warm. I can understand why Randy's dad moved from Allen to Plano. And Manny may tell this, but his dad's dealership was the old railroad station. It was where the train depot, the train stopped, and Dad did buy, and I drove that GMC pickup that Dad bought from Randy's dad. He had the Alice Chalmer dealerships, and we had Alice Chalmer combines that we ran and we bought from Randy's dad. Just the necessaries downtown. There was a doctor, there was an appliance store, there was a furniture store, there was a drugstore, a grocery store, a locker plant. Some of you say, what's a locker plant? You know, back those days we didn't have freezers, so you went to a locker plant, and when you had a hog or a calf slaughtered and you had to preserve your meat for the year, you had to have some way to preserve it. Now, back prior to locker plants was the smokehouse where you cured the meat and went out and cut the green off of it before you ate it. But downtown Plano had a locker plant that belonged to Homer Horton. That may be a name that I know Jamie and Randy will remember. But there was a locker plant down Plano. The old clothing store that Nathan White had. Fond memories of it. Those of you who may have seen I guess Pennies will be the one I would relate to, had the little deals you put in your money in the pot when you were paying for it, a little bucket. You pull a string and away it went to the top of the building where a cashier sat. They cashed your check or gave your change back, and it came back down. And that was in the store that Nathan White had. I think Nathan took it out, and I don't remember who owned that store. Who owned that store prior to Nathan coming in?
Oh gosh, I don't know.
Do you know? I don't know.
Growing up, it was Nathan White's.
Growing up, it was Nathan White's. But these are fond memories. I could talk about the Babber's Bakery that we loved to go when we were in high school and get the fresh donuts and fresh fried pies and those things. Then next door to it was the Weatherford's Jewelry Shop. John Arch Weatherford was a classmate of my dad, and in his later years, Dad said I can have a class reunion anytime I want to. All I've got to go is go over to the place of the. John was in a home for the adults, and Dad says all I got to do is go over and sit down with John, visit with him, and we can have a class reunion. So there are two of them left. I'm gonna stop. If y'all can ask me questions if you want to going forward, but I think I could sit and talk about Plano for the whole time.
Jamie, what about your first memory?
Oh,
you were
gosh.
sort of in town, going to downtown?
Yeah, we lived about 3 or 4 blocks on 18th Street, 808 18th Street, where if you remember Frank Palacia, who used to be a member of the club, he bought that house from my dad and then converted it into his architect studio. So it's still there. And next door we had Clyde Todd's vacant field with his horses, and then next to that was Rice Field. So we were only a few blocks from downtown, and I guess my first memories would be going to my dad and granddad's insurance agency, because he always kept candy, so we would go raid the candy jar. Brodhead Real Estate and Loan building was right across the street, and Randy's dad and my granddad and dad were all good buddies. Played a little golf together, I think, occasionally. Harrington Pharmacy, White's Auto Supply, Nathan White's store, gosh, what else? Weatherford Jewelry.
The movie theater.
The movie theater, the
Rat Palace.
The Palace.
The Rat Palace.
The Rat Palace movie theater. Yeah. Fond memories. Harrington Furniture was down there. A lot of good memories of going downtown, but downtown was it.
The post office was there.
Post office was right around the corner on Avenue K,
No,
wasn't it?
it was actually, at one time, it was right there on 15th Street,
Oh,
right in the
okay.
main, right in
That was
the main.
before my time.
Yeah, it was. It was before.
And then wasn't Joe Griffin Olds right there
Right.
too on the corner?
Right.
Right next, or right across the street from the Palisades, or the Palace
Right
Theater.
across from the theater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And remember, the funeral home was on the second floor of Harrington.
Oh, yes, it sure was. Yeah, fond memories. I had forgotten that, Janice.
This is the adult version of old people's Google.
Yeah, but then my other memories are right around the corner was Haggard Park, and we would go down there and fish for crawdads, if that sounds like an oxymoron, but, and then right across the street from Cox was Happy Time Kindergarten, where I went happily for a year. Didn't have to repeat, thankfully, and then, and went to Mendenhall and then Cox for junior high, and Plano High School, and was in the last class to go through Plano High School before it converted to Williams, and they opened Plano Senior High.
Randy, where'd you live and what's your first memory of downtown?
Well, we lived on Avenue K, and it was just north of 15th Street on Avenue K, so we actually lived really almost downtown. And, the first memory, I just remember going to my dad's implement business, and hanging around there even when I was just a little bitty. Actually, when I started school, it would be like Rutledge, all 12 grades were in the Cox building. And I remember in the first grade, a guy that worked for my dad was driving by, and he saw me sitting out on the steps, or sitting out by the street, and he stopped, and my dad had forgotten to pick me up. And so he picked me up and took me over to the implement business. And but my first, I remember going to the movie theaters on Saturday mornings, and
Oh gosh, I can't remember. 'Cause I lived with my brother.
we had two, that I can remember, we had two restaurants. We had on 15th, on Avenue K, you had James Hayes. Yeah, and then you had the Duchess. Wasn't it the Duchess? That may be before your time.
I think it was.
The Duchess on the north
Uh-huh.
of Avenue K. And it was a big deal when we got a Dairy Queen. That was,
Well, I'm gonna let you answer this question. Where'd you hang out as teenagers? As a teenager?
Dairy Queen. And I've got some pictures behind me, and let me pull these up and I'll kind of explain.
Sure.
The first one, this was the very first where the Rotary Club met. And this is the community house. It's why it was, when it was under construction.
Can you hold it up so they can see? You want Larry to be Vanna? Take that around.
Be Vanna.
So, you might could, yeah, let me,
You gotta show them that.
here, I'll hold it.
You gotta show them that.
Oh, yeah, and, this was Bud Mulroney. This was, you had Lions Club members and, Rotary Club members. That's me. My dad's taking the picture, but but it was a joint Lions Club, Rotary Club, building, and, it was actually built by the members.
And that's just south of downtown, right? Wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
it's a church now.
It's a church.
Yeah.
And I have another one. In Plano, they used to have the Gay 90 banquet, celebrating the Gay 90s. And they would, at downtown Plano, they would have different kind of, what would you call it? I know they had a dunking tank, and they had people, they were selling, they had all kinds of games and things. It was right down on 15th Street, and they'd block off the street. And, but then, they had a portable jail set up, and all the guys had
Is
to
that for the
have.
Schell family, or?
They had, all the guys had to have beards or a mustache, and if you didn't, or you could pay a fine and get a pass on that, but if you were caught with that, they would put you in jail for, 10 minutes or something like that, to harass you. But they had, and my dad and Nathan White did a skit on the stage there at the Gay 90 banquet. My dad portrayed John L. Sullivan, the boxer, and Nathan White was he was the hometown boy, was boxing John L. Sullivan. And
This is former county judge Nathan White, right? Or
No.
No, his daddy.
Dad.
His daddy. This is my dad, and this was Dr. What was it? The dentist.
Oh, Porterfield?
Porterfield, yes.
What year is that?
Nathan, well, it said 59.
1959.
59, my dad, Nathan White, Dr. Porterfield.
There's a picture on your table of the intersection of Parker Road in 75 and 1959 also, just for reference there. So where did you hang out as a teenager?
At the Dairy Queen.
The Dairy Queen.
I mean, that's it?
That was pretty much.
The second
That was
question,
all it was.
I'm not gonna ask you the second question yet. Jamie, tell us where you hung out. And I'll ask the
In
dirty-
Dallas?
Seriously?
There wasn't a whole lot going on in Plano other than Dairy Queen, so if you had a car, you went to Dallas. And there were more opportunities to get into things in Dallas.
Did you ever see American Graffiti? That's kind of what it was on a Friday, Saturday night. Go see the movie.
Here's another photo. Let's show
This
this.
is another photo. This was Little League Baseball. This is my dad. This was our team, and Little League Baseball was really big at that time, and you can probably, Janice can remember a lot of, I thought Johnny was gonna be here, and he would recognize some of the,
So where are you?
I'm right here.
Oh, okay. Who else is in there that we know?
Well, Randy Walker, Jackie Mayfield, Tommy Henderson, Gene Kaysen,
Oh, Gene, okay.
Mike Hall, Dave McCall, and Pete Walker, Glenn Lawandas, Jimmy Field, Richard Gray, and Jerry Rule.
I'm gonna ask the question, Rutledge, where you hung out as a teenager, then I'm gonna ask you guys a very hard question.
Well, it's a